All right, guys, welcome back to another Real Talk episode. Today, we're going to be talking about 12.5 versus 14.5. This is a legit question I've been asking myself lately. If I had to just choose one, which one would I choose? But before we get into all that, a couple things I want to cover. First of all, big shout out to GOA. If you donate $50, they give you this Abolish ATF hat. Super cool hat. I love these rope hats. So head on over and support the GOA. Big fan of those guys and what they're doing. Also, if you guys want to support the channel, rangedaybro.com has all of our discounts, all of our links are over there on the discounts page. We also have a loadouts page that has all these different loadouts. So if you guys want to know what parts I have on a particular build, you can look it up over there. And if you use those links, it does support the channel. So also, big shout out to Brownells, the biggest sponsor of the channel, RDB10 over at Brownells. Lastly, follow me on X, follow me on Rumble, subscribe to the email list on the website on rangedaybro.com. And then we also have a Patreon. So thank you guys for supporting the channel and liking, commenting, subscribing. I know you guys never hold back your comments during these Real Talks, so thank you for doing that. Now, I want to start at the beginning and just preface this with one thing. This is a different conversation if we're talking about starting out with 0 rifles or basing it off of and continue to grow your collection, which is where I believe most of my viewers are probably at and where I was kind of at when I was approached with this question. But I had 14.5s long before I had a 12.5. But let's just start at the beginning. Let's start as if we're talking to somebody who has 0 long guns. Maybe they just have some pistols, some handguns, EDC, whatever, but they don't have any rifles whatsoever, or maybe like a bolt action 308, let's say, which doesn't count. As we know, the Second Amendment is about defending freedom from tyranny, foreign or domestic. So these are the best tools for that job. So let's speak to that point first. If you are talking about somebody who has no AR-15s whatsoever, no semi-auto guns, whether it be 308, we're talking 5.56 primarily in this video, but either way, they have none, then I would say 100% the 14.5 is an easy standout in that realm, right? If you don't have anything at all, then you can get a 14.5, avoid the NFA BS, the extortion fee that the ATF makes you get to have an SPR. So you can avoid that. You are stuck with one muzzle device, kind of. You can always have it removed, but it's a pain. So call it stuck with one muzzle device. This is the URGI from Geisley. This is a great option out there. You guys can pick this up at Brownells. RDB10, again, gives you 10% off. But this is a great option. There's a ton out there. Actually, we have the Daniel Defense option right here as well. This guy is sporting a Sons of Liberty barrel for reasons we've spoken about in previous Real Talks, but the actual SOCOM profile barrel that came in this thing was pretty great. I haven't actually even shot this Sons of Liberty barrel. Just haven't had the excitement or the energy to really. And then this is another great option. This is the BRN4, which is a short stroke gas piston system. So pretty much a clone of the HK 416. This one is also a 14.5 from Brownells. So it's actually Brownells. This is a HK rail, obviously from my MR 5.56. I upgraded that to a Geisley rail and I put the original OEM HK rail on this BRN4 upper. But it's a BRN, Brownells, BCG and all that. Tons of great options out there for 14.5s. There's no shortness of AR-15, 14.5 uppers on the market that are pretty darn solid. So there's a ton you can get. I just named 3 of probably my favorites. SOCOM profile barrel was a real thick barrel. So if you want to do like really high rates of fire, that's a great barrel. Cold hammer forged, chrome lined. Obviously the Geisley, this has been my go-to for a long time until the 12.5 dethroned it. So let's talk about it. So for obvious reasons, if you had no AR-15s, this is a great option because it does give you the ability to not only avoid the NFA BS and not have to deal with that paperwork, but also 14.5 is going to give you really good velocities, considering, all things considered. It's about the longest you really want to go with throwing a full-size suppressor on there. I mean, you could go 16-inch, but a 16-inch gun with a full-size suppressor is it's like you're carrying around a spear. It literally feels like you're carrying around a long spear, like you're a caveman with a long spear. And it's been done. People do it all the time. I'm not saying you can't do it, but with this RC2 and this 14.5, I mean, I'd imagine this is pushing like easily 20 inches. So it feels like a full, probably 21, 22 inches actually. So it feels like I'm carrying around a full-size M16A1. But again, it gives you great capabilities for 5.56 to reach out to 600-700 yards effectively, still have enough energy out past 4.56 to get the expansion that you want with a 5.56 caliber, but also not have to worry about, again, it being way too long for maneuverability indoors. And if this was your one gun, like you were only buying one, you could get 2 cans, for instance. You could just get a full-size can for when you're outdoors doing recce stuff, and then you could have a shorter K can for indoors. You really don't need a can. at least get a blast deflector. But I recommend a can for literally everything, for home defense, for just your hearing safety. And if you ever shoot one of these indoors, you'll understand why. If you go to an indoor range and pop your ear pro off, I don't recommend you do it. You'll lose your hearing because these things are super loud, especially indoors. So I always recommend a can, and 14.5 is great for that. Now, assuming everybody watching, if you've made it this far into my rant, is probably like me and you already have something, then it's really going to depend on what you already have. I know this may sound obvious, but it's not as obvious, I don't think, as it seems, because when you go from a 12.5, this has been my go-to 12.5 for the longest. So this is the Geisley Super Duty 12.5 inch. You guys have seen this a ton on the channel. We have been really just running crazy rounds through this thing because it's been my absolute favorite gun to run lately. This thing has been an absolute tank. And right now it's on my SBR lower and has the very special FRT trigger in it. But when you compare these two, you're actually, what are you getting? How much bigger is the 14.5? It may not seem like a lot because you're getting the rail's 2 inches longer. So we have an 11.5 inch rail versus a 13.5 inch rail. The barrel's 2 inches longer, 12.5 versus 14.5. You cannot avoid the NFA stuff unless you do a pistol brace, obviously. And then there's other stipulations with that, maybe, who knows anymore. But this is an SBR, so don't have to worry about that. But what you're really sacrificing is the weight is not, the weight itself of the barrel and the rail aren't crazy. It's maybe like 3/4 of a pound. And I know guys are gonna be like, ounces equal pound, pounds equal pain. I get that. But the weight itself of the upper purely is not that big of a difference, especially, well, no, I think the barrel profile doesn't matter as much. The Geisley profile is tapered, so it actually feels, it feels better. If this was a URGI or a Super Duty upper versus URGI, it probably would feel better actually, but you're not putting that much more weight on it, but what you're doing is you're pushing your attachments out further, especially like a light and a laser. If you were running a light and a laser on here, I'm running a light, my laser's on my 11.5 here, but it's pushing it out further. So even though the actual upper doesn't weigh that much more in a 14.5, that can's hanging out further, that light's hanging out further, everything's out a little bit further, so it's gonna push that balance off towards the front and it's gonna feel much heavier than it really is. So that's the biggest difference. And as far as velocity, you do get a pretty decent velocity increase going from the 12.5 to the 14.5. After looking into it more, I do have one 13.7. I would never do that again. There's really not enough of a gain from the 12.5 to the 13.7 to really make it worth it to go up. But I say all that to say, if you already have some stuff, like let's say you have a 10.3, let's say you have a Mark 18, would I go 12.5 or 14.5? In that case, I'm gonna go 14.5. Before I go through all the other barrel lengths, if I have anything shorter than a 14.5, like 10.3, if I had a 7.5, I'd sell it immediately and never admit you have one because I started with a 7.5. It was my first build ever before I knew anything about 5.56. I just thought it was cool. But anyways, if you have a 10.3, an 11.5, a 13.7, I guess that's kind of more in the realm of this guy here. But if you have a 10.3 and an 11.5 already, obviously, I think you should go with the 14.5. Just unlocks a lot more capabilities for you. Now, if you have a 16-inch gun, which most people do, I would say, if you go to Cabela's or Academy or Bass Pro, you're probably going to pick up a 16-inch gun because that is the shortest barrel length per the NFA you can buy. And a lot of stores like that are not specialized, like, you know, like Peace of Mind Guns, or like there's not like a real gun store like we have, like you guys know, like the real gun stores versus the big boxes, right? Then they're not going to have 14.5s pin and welded, right? So, and if they do, they're probably pin and weld with like a flash hider you can't connect a muzzle device to, or a suppressor to rather. So, you know, might as well be a 16-inch gun. If you already have a 16-inch gun, then I would say instead of going with the 14.5, it is much more worth it to look at the 12.5. But even then, maybe even the 11.5 is more up your alley because the 16-inch is going to be able to get you everywhere you need as far as long distance recce rolls out in the mountains, out in the hills, wherever you live, right? Urban environments, you know, I'd probably still take the 14.5. It depends on the situation, but you know, it's going to get you the long distance capabilities that you need. So why not go with a shorter 12.5? And I honestly would make an argument for the 11.5 in that situation. If you have a 14.5 or 16-inch gun, I'd probably go with the 11.5. But if I was starting from scratch and I had nothing, damn, I just said that would buy the 14.5. Yeah, it's like I go back and forth on it all the time. I guess it just depends on your environment a lot too. But I mean, people, Brass made a video about this, I think, a while back about how urban environments, people think like, oh, urban, like it's gonna be 100 yards and in. Like it's really not the situation. In my neighborhood, like yeah, right across the street's like 30 yards maybe, but like we have very long lines of sight. We have at least, 150, 200 yards. I mean, it's pretty hilly out here, but I can see clear out 1,000 yards to the next, hillside. So I'm not saying I'm going to take a 14.5, 5.6 out to 1,000 yards. I'm not saying you need to engage those distances. If there was a, fallout situation, you probably want to just get out of that situation. But I don't know, guys. I mean, you guys let me know down in the comments what you think. I'm really kind of going back and forth. I think if you already have if you already have like a 16-inch gun, then go with a 12.5. In that case, if you already have a 14.5, then go with the 11.5. If you have a 10.3 and a 14.5, do you need a 12.5? Probably not. I'd I'd rather have an 11.5 and a 14.5 personally. But there's nothing wrong with a 10.3. You're just going to know it's a 200-yard and in gun essentially for the ballistic performance on target. The 11.5 gets you a little bit further, and the 12.5 gets you a little further than that, and the 14.5 gets you a little further than that. So as long as you understand what the capabilities are going to be, then that's all that matters. And really what matters is that you train with them, because otherwise you're just going to be a sick loot drop for the guy who domes you from like 400 yards away because he knows his dope and you don't. And so I'm struggling with this question right now because I have my attacker 1-8 on the 14.5 right now. This has been my like, hey, if I need to grab one gun to do it all, shit's really hit the fan, this is going to be the gun I'm going to grab. And since I've been really toying with this one a lot lately, it's got me questioning that, and I'm questioning whether or not I should switch it over, because this attacker is a really good piece of glass, but so is the EOTech. EOTech's pretty great, especially for the money. But I'm just questioning like whether I should swap the optics. I mean, here I go talking about, training with whatever you have. Restless rifle syndrome is a real thing, and I suffer from it pretty extensively. Now, sometimes I have to because I don't have enough money to put an optic on. If I get a rifle, I get a new upper end. I can't also buy a $3,000 scope with it every single time. So in that case, it's necessary. But in this case where I'm just like, okay, I know I love my 14.5. I know I love my 12.5. What should I prioritize, or what should I make like my go-to, my number one? And that's where I'm kind of struggling. I think I like that the 12.5 has the capability to be used for home defense more easily than the 14.5, and I could still take it out to 400 or 500 yards. And the reason that's intriguing to me is because more than just my good glass, I can dedicate my time to it, which is the most important thing. My time is my most important thing of putting into these rifles. It's not the best piece of glass or the best suppressor or the best trigger I have, these all have Geissele triggers, so they're all great. So that's kind of a moot point, but you get what I'm saying. It's not even the parts, it's the ammo and the time is really what it is. It's putting the time into it to recognize and to understand it without having to think about it, without having to second guess it. So that's where I'm struggling, because I've been spending a ton of time with the 12.5 and the 11.5, just the nature of YouTube. That's been kind of the track and the review I've been going down. But I kind of set this 14.5 URGI aside, and I haven't really touched it in a minute. So that's a question I've presented to myself. Like, do I want to come back and revisit this 14.5, reinitiate myself, get intimate with it again, and make this my one do-it-all rifle? Or do I want to just continue down the path with a 12.5? Maybe I swap the optics, maybe I don't. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. And yeah, I could have both be like, this is my primary, for if I'm going into the hills, and this is my primary for everyday home defense and for the truck and, whatever. But I would rather just get to know one super duper well. And that's the trouble with being a YouTube reviewer, guys. Like, it's all glitz and glamour, but like going to the range is a job for me now. So I know, woe on me, right? I'm living my dream. I'm blessed. Thank you guys for allowing me to do this. But it is a bit, it's a bit difficult to get to know, like to go back to Old Faithful and just like really train with it when you have like 4 rifles in the lineup that you have to go shoot and zero and, get to know really well, so I can give you guys my opinion on whether that's worth it or not. Because I mean, I'm sure all these rifles, like, they're all great, right? Like, it's 2025. Like, if you're not making a good rifle, you're probably not in business, or you just spend all your money on marketing, and you're a marketing company who also makes guns. We know a couple of those, but yeah, there's a lot of shills out there too. There's a ton of gun tubers who just literally just show the stuff and talk only good things, or just like be a salesperson for it. That's not me. I have to get to know something and shoot it a long time before I can be like, I really like this thing. I'm going to use this to defend my life if it ever came to it. And so it does get difficult but I guess I'm just dragging this out way longer than it needs to be. I think I'm going to reinitiate my familiarity with the 14.5 because if I want to really make the best decision possible, I'm going to need to get back out there and just shoot this one again, because I've shot that 12.5 a ton lately and I haven't shot this one at all lately. So I'm going to get back out there with this one and just get familiar with it again. Again, the only downside is I'm stuck with the RC2. I mean, I could get an RC3, and Surefire does make a hub adapter now, which is cool, but it's extending the weight and length of whatever suppressor you put it in. So kind of defeats the purpose in my opinion. But maybe, who knows, maybe we'll get an RC3, see how it works. We do have a 4-prong flashlight on here. We don't have a closed tine, so we shouldn't have to worry about the issues with the RC3 and all that stuff. But this URGI was my favorite rifle upper for a long time. And since the 12 has dethroned it, the 12.5, but we're going to revisit it, and I'm going to see if I can kind of make my best judgment of whether this is the one I'm going to go with or not for everything, because I have all these options. Again, if you don't have anything, I think this is the clear choice. But if you already have a 16-inch gun, then the 12.5 is the clear choice, and then so on and so forth. But we didn't even talk 308s. Like, if you have a 16-inch 308, I still think the 12.5 would be the next choice, because you got something that can go out and reach. But again, for recce type rolls, it all depends on like what level of like catastrophe you're trying to prepare for. I'm trying to prepare for all of them, I guess you could say. But you don't know what's going to approach you until you're in the situation. So if you had to grab one, I don't know, this might be the one. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. If you guys want to support the channel, rangedaybro.com for all of our discounts, our merch. Subscribe to our email list over there. Check out the loadouts page. Rumble, X, follow me over there. Follow me on IG as well. And then lastly, we have a Patreon now as well. If you guys want to support the channel further, let me know what you guys want to see as far as Real Talks go moving into the future. We have a ton of stuff coming up on the channel. We're going to be shooting a lot more competitions and doing as many training courses as we can here in the future. I'm really interested in long range precision, like PRS matches and stuff like that. I love shooting my DMRs, so you'll be seeing a lot more of that on the channel. So if there's anything specifically you guys want to see, let me know. But any companies you want to see me working with that you'd like me to reach out to, or see if I can get a hold of their products, let me know down in the comments below. But also, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys. Check your subscriptions. I know a lot of you guys will check and you're unsubscribed magically, so check that out. It really helps me out if you guys click that subscribe button. A lot of you guys who do watch are actually not subscribed. Like 50 or 60% actually of my viewers are not actually subscribed to the channel. So it does a lot for me, helps me out a lot if you hit that subscribe button. And that's pretty much it, guys. Christ is King. Love you guys. Check it out in the next one.